Welcome to our video chat Q&A. I'm Caroline Hill. I'm one of the directors at Creed Communications. I'd like to introduce you with a warm welcome to both Mike Bradshaw from Pinpoint and Dave, who's also a director at Creed Communications. Do you want to just do quick intros to your backgrounds, both of you?
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Carolyn. I'm Mike Bradshaw. I'm the VP of Talent here at Pinpoint. We're an applicant tracking system. I've been in TA and HR for about 15 years, first half of the career with sort of large companies, in the last 8 or 9 years, early stage startups. Pinpoint itself, we're a high growth HR tech startup. We build software that helps in-house recruiting teams help hire, attract, and onboard talent, specifically designed to help companies with complex hiring needs, to help hiring faster, fairer, and more human for both in-house recruiters and for candidates. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Mike. Oh, Dave.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I'm Dave Walster, one of the directors here at Creed. I've been in employer branding and talent attraction for 18 years and at Creed now for 8. We help businesses primarily in the UK, but across the globe as well, define their employer brands and help them with all their talent attraction needs as well. So yeah, thanks for having us on as well, Caroline.
Thank you both. Well, the reason we've got both of you in the room is just really to delve into your expertise and your bright minds to really understand how employer brand experts, TA teams, can work harmoniously with the ATSs to really, I suppose, improve the most important thing, which is candidate experience. Tough talent markets, both UK and US. We put a lot of effort and investment in time and budget in talent attraction and ATS technology. So how are we making both of those things work better together? We know talent experts are being asked to do more with less, whether that's less resource, less time, less budget, but how are we making the most of what we have to hand to make the candidate experience better and improve our employer brand, employer reputation? So that's really the theme of the conversation and the questions we're going to talk through. And I suppose the first one is around, if we think about all the touch points that a candidate will have with an organisation, probably before they, even before they apply or before they speak to a hiring manager or recruiter human at the other end, that can be something from 15, 20 plus touch points, whether they've seen a job listing, they've had a referral, word of mouth, they've seen social content, they've been on the career site, they've been on the organisation's website. All of those touch points then lead somebody into the ATS. So once they're there, how can we ensure a speedy and seamless experience so that we hold on to that interest in those applicants, and reduce the number of steps and clicks, I suppose? So how's Pinpoint enabling that and making that smarter, Mike?
Yeah, that is exactly what we see at Pinpoint. By the time someone speaks to me or eventually the hiring manager, there is an impression that's already been set, and it's not based on one thing. It's a whole series of clicks and pages, emails, and posts. And the truth is, candidates now compare your process to really any consumer experience. If they're taking 3 clicks to order groceries, but 20 clicks to apply for your job, you've already sort of lost people. So our focus is really stripping out any sort of friction and creating that consistency. And so for us, we actually kind of go back a minute and we start with even before the application, we think about the intake process with the hiring manager. If the job spec is really unrealistic or unclear, or it's full of sort of wish list qualifications, you're really setting up your process, your candidates, for frustration right from the start. And we think about the drop off is going to really start from that beginning. And so at Pinpoint, we really kick the tires with the hiring manager. We make sure the scope is real. We understand what success looks like, and we strip out anything that really doesn't matter when we think about the right candidate profile, when we think about the job description, how we're positioning it on job boards. All of that thing needs to be sort of holistic and consistent. And we design the job descriptions to help candidates qualify or disqualify themselves quickly. And that's where we have a section really up front on our job posting. It's called the sort of fine print section of our job descriptions, and it tells you, beyond the things like where the role is based and all of that, but it lays out uniquely what's going to be hard about the job, what's uniquely hard about Pinpoint itself. We're upfront about the resources you're not going to have within the organization, the challenges you'll face, the realities that maybe most companies gloss over until the later stage or final interviews. We put it in the first paragraph, so you know exactly what sort of you're stepping into. And so the right people lean in, the wrong people self-select, and everyone's time is respected. We think that, transparency is another big lever. When you think about that sort of drop-off rate, we share salary ranges, detailed benefits, we outline the hiring process. There's a hiring manager bio, and that way, so candidates never start an application only to realize halfway through that they don't have all the information they need to commit. The application itself, like to your main point, we have a goal of 90 seconds or less, that they should be able to get in 90 seconds or less. That's the test. We tested ourselves to make sure of that. We think that's a very reasonable expectation for candidates. We got rid of cover letters. Honestly, for us, this is not necessarily true of everybody. For us, we hate them. We don't think they're relevant for us. We ask one open-ended question on the application. We have a way that we structure it, and we give it's prescriptive. We tell them it's 2 to 3 sentences. So we give the candidate very clear that we don't want them to write a paragraph or go on for an essay. It's 2 to 3 sentences. We ask them a very essential question, and it gives us a signal without wasting anyone's time. And like I said, we constantly test our own flow. We run sort of friction audits. We walk through the process ourselves. We count the clicks. We look for what would be drop-off points. And if we wouldn't do it ourselves, we wouldn't ask candidates to do that. And then everything has to work seamlessly on mobile. We know that's how a lot of people are going to apply.
Yeah.
Messaging has to be consistent across job ads, careers page, LinkedIn, applications, like I said. And the goal is simple: make every interaction feel like a natural continuation of the brand, not a disjointed chore, essentially.
Okay, cool. So Dave, from an employer brand perspective, all those touch points pre-ATS, how can, what's new in terms of EB content to make attraction and conversion as effective as possible?
It's a good question. I was actually just going to randomly say as well that I don't think enough collaboration happens between the likes, in this case, of maybe an organization's advertising agency, recruitment ad agency, and their ATS. I don't think that happens nearly enough. And I think that shows in a lot of kind of application processes and candidate experience as well. To your question, Kaz, just whilst I think largely it's the differentiation, I suppose, between employer brand and EVP. If you're EVP, for example, you are proactively maybe marketing that you are either customer focused or you're an inclusive employer or whatever it might be, and that's what you offer. But your application process or candidate experience is anything but. I think there's an immediate disjoint between what you're saying you're going to be as an employer versus then the experience you're giving people right off the bat. But then there's more of an employer branding kind of stance, which is how do you make sure that everything you do from an attraction advertising standpoint is consistent through when you hit the ATS and you go through that process through, career site and then kind of the whole onboarding thing. I think strangely, it seems really reductive, Caroline, but the best thing I'm seeing at the moment is video content, explainer videos. We've done some recently for a business when I'm thinking about the types of people that they actually recruit for en masse, sometimes how to make an application, what's going to happen at each stage, what they should expect. Amazing what a difference that's made, getting their employer brand across, but making really useful, helpful videos for people to watch to manage expectations has been hugely beneficial.
Great. Okay. Might you have any examples of Pinpoint customers that are using video effectively?
Yeah, there's a couple of customers that are, well, there's quite a few on the career site. So one of the things that when we think about sort of employer brand content, we think of sort of in 2 phases: to sort of attract and engage phase of the candidate journey when you're using Pinpoint.
Yeah.
And I think for us, Attract is obviously about ensuring the right people take notice to your jobs and to your talent pipeline. And it starts with the career site. And I think too often in the ATS, it's a sort of an afterthought. And we think it should be a branded hub for your company story. And within Pinpoint, every page always stays on brand, following with your font, your colors, your tone of voice, all of that is sort of built into the platform. It's very easy. It's a no-code way to sort of ensure that it's consistent and it's updated all the way through for your job application, your FAQs, all of that. And it's a very, very easy way for you to embed images, of course, but videos onto your career site, onto your sub pages, and onto your job applications itself. And so even if you wanted to have sort of custom welcome messages on the job postings and the job application pages, whether you're having consistent videos on the same videos on your job applications, or you want to have welcome messages from the hiring managers or the department head or whoever you may be, there's very, very easy ways to do that, where you can just literally paste in the URL of the videos, for example, or upload them. So we make that very easy for you to do that. And it is a very, very effective way to engage your candidates and to stand out in a very, very, very crowded market.
Sure. Okay. Thank you both. Moving on then, in late summer, Creed did some research with candidates, and it showed that 45% of candidates had decided not to continue with the job because of a poor onboarding experience. Now, obviously, a lot of the work that we do from attraction and conversion in the ATS leads to the further onboarding experience. What steps should employer brand and TA teams be taking to kind of reduce that number and improve that experience?
Oh, I might jump in on this one if you don't mind. Just so it's a bit
Go
of a
ahead.
passion point, this one.
Passion point.
Passion point. I saw another stat. It wasn't ours, and I'm not going to necessarily give the credit out just yet, but it was because I don't know how reliable it is, but it was a candidate, if rejected, if still treated well during that rejection and gets feedback, are four times more likely to go and apply for a job with that company again in the future, which is again another great example of why treating people well and following the process well, and that, I guess that comes more from the recruitment teams, is obviously so important. What was the question again, Kaz, there? About
what steps should teams take to reduce that number? So how can you improve the onboarding experience?
I think I got a couple of thoughts when you first asked this. One was around the use of AI, which I know is obviously hugely out there at the moment. There's two trains of thought with this for me. There's either you read a lot of sentiment at the moment on LinkedIn or in different places that there's a lot of distrust with people talking to chatbots. If you're talking about application chatbots and helping you through a process and how useful they are, rather than being able to speak to a real person, versus AI that you don't really know is there and just is a really slick process of getting you through that application process. So that getting that candidate journey right, if you are using AI, is going to be really important, because there's a lot of tech out there now at the moment. It's just making sure you pick the right one. I think a really simple thing for me is just measuring stages of drop off. Most kind of workflows, application workflows, will have different stages. To understand where you're losing people will help you identify ultimately what the core problem is. We've mentioned that 45% stat there, Kaz. There will be a higher proportion of where they are dropping out, generally speaking, and to be able to identify what that is, why that is, will help you fix it.
Yeah. Okay, Mike, from an ATS point of view, how can teams be, making the onboarding experience a better experience?
Yeah, and just to piggyback on Dave's comment around the sort of rejected or sort of what we call silver medalist candidates, we've hired quite a few of those. We've had, probably this year, off the top of my head, I can think of 3 that we've hired that were sort of our second choice candidate, and other searches didn't quite work out. We always give candidates feedback if we interview them and we don't move on with them, even if it's a first round. We always give them feedback as to why. And we re-engaged them for another role, and we ended up hiring them. So definitely pays off. It's the right thing to do. It's table stakes mistakes giving feedback, but it certainly can pay off as well. Yeah, that's a huge number, the 45%. I was surprised to read that when I saw that. The handoff from candidate to employees, where a lot of companies unfortunately will fall apart. What we found that works for us is a really smooth handover from recruiting to HR is really important. Of course, candidates should never be left wondering what's left. When they sign that offer letter, you've got this opportunity to ride that momentum, just like when you sign a customer. It's the same thing, and you have the sort of this momentum to have a slam dunk, and if you don't, you're scoring on your own goal, to continue the sports metaphors, which I'm really poorly doing it because I don't know a lot about it. For us, we give them first a clear outline of what to expect. So you signed your offer letter, we're super excited, here's what's going to happen, here's the timeline, so they know exactly what's going to happen next. Here's the point of contact, here's the key milestones and dates. We released a feature a few months ago called workflow automations inside the ETS. It works to nudge everybody along, keeps everything on track, all stakeholders, reminding them what's going on. So that helps us automatically triggering welcome emails, reminders, scheduling reminders, so nothing sort of slips through the crack. We think that self-service is king for like onboarding. So letting, candidates, especially being really sensitive to the fact that they're usually still working, they're putting in their notice, and we will give them deadlines, but we don't want to also bother them while they're trying to do their notice, right? So they can go in when they have time and they have got their reminders to fill out this and click this and do this. So people want to feel in control and do it on their own time. So we can use a central hub where new hires can track what's owed, what's due, what's next, and then automations keep the hub sort of automated. And we, pair somebody with an onboarding buddy. It's not their manager. It creates that sort of safe space for questions. It makes the onboarding feel a little bit more human. And then just in general, we think onboarding runs in 2 tracks. Everyone goes through the sort of like company-wide, what's the sort of table stakes pinpoint training. That's done by level because it's going to be a little different by level. And then, of course, we have this specific sort of team or department training. We've refreshed both tracks every around 150 days. That's more of the nature of our startup. We know that every 25 to 30 employees, our processes and everything are just going to break, and so we have to refresh those. But then finally, you have to measure it. We run surveys by department, by level, by geo, to understand onboarding satisfaction, to understand differences. We keep those sort of evergreen surveys open to catch inconsistencies in how managers or teams are onboarding people, and just to understand, basically how the experience was, to understand if there's a delta between what they thought they were applying for, what they thought they were signing for when they signed their offer letter versus, day 100 in their role, and what the delta was. And then that gets fed back to our manager and myself and the recruiting team to understand sort of how we are positioning ourselves wrong if we are. So those things in totality really can make a big difference when it comes to onboarding and eliminating that drop off.
Yeah, that's really interesting because, having the data of how all organisations are improving that process is gold dust really for other talent teams to learn from. And I know from our experience, Dave, there's a large care organisation that was suffering from a high drop off of candidates not turning up to their induction welcome days because they didn't have enough information to hand about how to get there, what to wear, who paid for travel, all the basic logistical things about onboarding. And that was, purely came down to a really good piece of well-written, friendly, straightforward comms pack for the candidates to have. So they've gone through the online process and then they got a warm piece of communications to hold their hand and help them in the next stage of their onboarding. I think that's probably one example I can recall, Dave. Don't know if you have any others.
No, it's great. I would call it, it was the anti-anxiety video, that one. That was where with lots of people who were going down for that week's training had never left their town or city before. So to know where they were staying and who was feeding them and all that kind of stuff was genuinely really important. It was just the stuff you just take for granted, I suppose. I mean, I was just going to kind of go back, just right back to kind of the core question you asked there about improving that candidate experience. I mean, this might be a conversation we can have separately, Mike, but having an ATS in the first place. I mean, you would be still amazed at how many businesses we work with that are still doing things manually, or organizations that we at least know of as well, or kind of you meet on the circuit. So I think not having an ATS, what's that kind of doing for candidate experience? So I think having that there in the first place is also hugely important. And then Mike, I really enjoyed your comment about silver medalist. It reminded me of a crazy figure, and I think there'll be probably lots of people listening that can relate to this, but if you don't have a talent pool and people who are kind of finishing a close second, I suppose, would be worthy hires, but there was only one position available, for example. Spoke to one organization who'd spent hundreds of thousands of pounds in agency fees for people that they already had in their talent pool, that they'd just not been back through, labeled properly, searched for them, and could have easily just reached out as silver medalists and made a huge saving on what they ended up spending through agencies. So again, what a different experience that is for the candidate as well. You've applied, you've come a close second, you've been told you've come a close second, then to be contacted by a recruiter maybe 6, 12, 18 months later, just probably not a great message either.
Yeah.
This quarter alone, we had a marketing position, a senior marketing position, a CS position, and an AE position filled in under a week. These are roles that typically would take 60 days. We filled in a week, and there were 3 candidates in our talent pipeline that I reached out to between 6 and 12 months ago. Reached out to them. They weren't interested at the time. Really interesting profile. I put them in our talent pipeline, re-engaged them. They were ready to chat. We put them through our 3 to 4 step interview process, and we hired them, filled them just from our talent pipeline. So 100% agreed.
Yeah, I think we can all agree it's use the data to hand, use the tech that you've invested in, and make the most of strong communication messages and lines of communication through the ATS. It's there to be used. So I'm interested in what's coming next, I guess. So from a Pinpoint point of view, and Dave from a Creed employer brand development point of view, what should talent teams be focusing on in the next 6 to 12 months, in your opinion? What are the big ticket items that are most important for the success?
Yeah, I mean, right now, TA teams are doing more with less. There's more candidate volume. They have less resources and budgets. A lot of times, when there's sort of economic uncertainty or downturn or layoffs, recruiting teams are usually the first sort of teams to feel that pain.
Yeah.
But there are applicant volume is at a sort of an all-time high right now. Right now, it is more critical than ever that teams have the right tooling to manage that volume, not only to make sure that they're having a really good candidate experience, but to manage the high volume of recs that they're managing when their companies do decide to continue hiring or to ramp up that volume. They need to be prepared to do that. At the same time, they need to really have that seat at the table to be influential, and to do that, they need to have the right data, which means they have to have the right tooling to do that.
Yeah.
And the other reason that candidate experience is really important is that, going after and sourcing candidates and finding those high value candidates is harder than ever right now for 2 reasons. One is there's a lot of great AI sourcing tools out there that are popping up every day, but it means candidates are flooded with messaging. It's harder and harder to reach them and to stand out. And those really solid, strong candidates are less likely to move right now. They are weary of the labor market. They're weary of more tech companies and layoffs, and they are harder to move. And so your candidate experience, your employer brand, your EVP, all those things are more important than ever. So you need the right tooling with things like the Pinpoint rolled out workflow automations, which is really important. So being intentional to go out and find the right tooling for yourselves that can help you deal with high volume in a way that is going to make you work smarter, that's going to actually help the candidate experience, not make it worse. That isn't just throwing like really horrible AI job descriptions out there. That isn't just rejecting candidates for reasons that you don't really know why. It's like in a black box. We think that workflow automation can help you do this in a meaningful way. So the right tooling to help you do more with less, to be more insightful with really good data insights, to help you have a seat at the table, to be sort of more influential as a TA leader, I think is really important right now and will be in the next 12 months.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Dave?
Great answer, Mike. How am I going to follow that one? I'm going to echo everything you said. And obviously, our markets probably aren't that different. We've had some very specific things that have happened in ours as well that's meant that lots of businesses have had to really tighten their belts and try and make huge cost savings this year, unusual amounts of cost saving. Every year, there's generally a try and do a little bit more with the same or less as a general rule. But this year's been particularly tough for a lot of businesses. This might seem reductive, but bear with me. I think clients and businesses I'm seeing at the moment are broadly falling into two camps, and this is where I think business should be focusing the retention if they can. There's the camp that are recruitment numbers are coming in great. There's loads of people applying. I'm not struggling to fill roles, so I'm more than happy to do less and just kind of let things flow through because we're not struggling. I don't need to advertise. I don't need to do anything outside of the comfort zone. I'm just status quo. It's fine. I'm not necessarily saying I agree with that. I think there are businesses that we're seeing, which is very much in our train of and school of thought at the moment, who are investing in their employer brands or assets to support the employer brands that they already have, waiting for the inevitable to happen, which will be, who knows when. I'd love, if I knew when, I'd be a millionaire, but whether it's 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 18 months, who knows when it'll be. But when things revert to where they were or to some semblance of normality, the businesses that have invested in who are we, what do we stand for, what do we stand for now if things have changed a little bit, if we have had to make restructures, we've transformed. So what are we, the same business that we were post-COVID? Are we quite different again now? And that investment in employer brand, EVP, content to go with that will set people far, far ahead when things snap back to reality, as it were. And the people who've done that will noticeably have a head start. So that's the two camps we're seeing at the moment.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Thank you both for your full answers. We could talk all afternoon, but I'm sure you've both got other things to do, and I think 20 minutes is enough for any video call. So really appreciate both of your insights, sharing your knowledge and expertise. If anybody watching does want to pick the brains of these two experts or get in touch otherwise, Mike from Pinpoint and Dave from Creed Comms, I'm sure both have live LinkedIn contacts for you to get in touch. I know, Mike, you're a pro on YouTube as well, so can be found there. Just want to say thank you both for your input today, and there'll be more content to follow, I'm sure. Thank you both.
Thank you.